especially if you go to a place you're a welcome visitor. It's like, hey, this is how they do it there. Don't, you're not going to bring your New York attitude to wherever and say like, hey, it's got to be like this. And so I think that was something also that felt really important about travel, which was to get outside of ourselves and how we grow accustomed to everything being such, and having that patience, which also creates, I think, a humility, weirdly, where you just sort of go, okay, this is how it's going to go. The bus is going to come when it comes. It's just sort of how it is. So I think for me, doing that really early in life, and also growing up like that, like I said, in the Virgin Islands, I don't know, it creates a different, not expectation, but not everywhere you go are you sort of chomping at the bit and like, well, it should be like this. It's like, well,
I
no.
get that even in the middle part of the country. Like, and I'd go to the Dakotas for work and all that. It's like people actually wave to you when you drive by, and you're like, here in Los Angeles, it's a different kind of wave. It's a middle finger wave.
Yeah.
But, people are like super friendly. And it's just kind of the same thing. It's that makes you think, okay, not
Yeah.
all people are bad and in a hurry.
Well, and you have to be that, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing is that I have my own versions of it where I catch myself when I'm sometimes in a place where I have a lot going on, or you're in Los Angeles, instead of like, oh no, don't add to that too.
Yeah.
Bring something else.
Well, Hawaii's kind of like that. And some, there are some they say they're going to open at 10, but 11 ends up being.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think there's something really valuable in life when you learn to go with have a little bit of that grace and just be
Yeah.
like, it's okay.
I,
You know?
I definitely was not that way in my 30s, but I'm definitely in my 50s, and it's working out a lot better for me. Keep my
Yeah.
blood pressure down.
Well, and then you don't attract it, right? I
Yeah.
think you have a level of acceptance of things. I feel like you go into more of a flow versus if you're constantly pushing and grinding, you're going to meet every single resistance that there is.
Yeah.
And I find that there's so seldom the situations that really warrant that.
And I think travel does that. I wish more people would be able to travel because
Yeah.
even if, like I said, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be to Japan. It doesn't have to be across the world. Just a different state
Yeah.
can give you a different perspective on things. So
Yeah.
I think that's the value of travel. Like, what the hell's Jason doing? That's cool, man.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is you've traveled around the world now for everything that you've done between
Yeah. Multiple
skating,
times.
everything, right?
Yeah. I've flown completely around the world in 9 days. Like I went clockwise around the world. LA, JFK to Italy to Germany to Kuwait, Afghanistan to Japan, Hawaii home.
In 9 days. Do you ever think you'll stop skating?
No, I'll always have a board under my feet or shoes.
How are the injuries going?
They're pretty good. I stopped counting. I stopped counting broken bones after 10, and I've had one crazy one and one funny one. I've spiral fractured my femur, and my foot was I was laying on the bottom of the ramp, and my foot was pointed up. I was laying on my belly, and my foot was pointed out. And my buddy's like, "Whoa,
that's not right."
Yeah, and another one was I was doing this gap, and I threw my board, and I hit the edge of the curb like with my arch. So I thought I was like, I sprained my foot pretty bad. I thought 3 months later, it felt better. So I was skating again, and I jammed my big toe going down this 6 stair. And so I was like, man, I think I broke my toe this time. So I went to get it x-rayed. I put my foot there and get an x-ray, and the doctor comes in. He has the x-rays, but he's going around. He's holding my foot up, and he's rubbing my heel. He's like, does this hurt? Does this hurt? Is it? And I'm like, no,
I'm good, bro.
Nothing hurts there. No. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, my big toe. He just yanks my big toe. I'm like, wow. Like, oh, it's fine. He goes, but I got to show you something. Holds up the X-ray to the light, and it's my right foot, and the bottom right of it on my heel, completely a big bone chip broke off and just sitting there.
With the girls, it's just more of a fun slumber party, you know. We just have such a good time. But I will say also kind of a cool thing about traveling with the boys in the band is that I had the back lounge was my room.
Yeah.
I never have slept in a bunk. So
but now you're just another girl.
just one of the girl guys. Yeah, just another one. But back then, yeah, I was treated really well. And I had the back room as my room. And it just was big and spacious. And yeah, no bunk for this girl.
So does your keyboardist get the back room now?
Hell no. No, he's usually driving.
That's true.
Actually, he's usually our tour manager and our driver, although we do get different tour managers from time to time. But yeah, it's very different than traveling with the boys. And, you know, both of them had their perks for sure. I mean, it was fun being the only girl in the band, just like the affection and attention.
You had 4 or 5 big brothers, right?
100%. And by the way, one of them is my real brother. The bass player was my brother. He still is my brother. Yeah, again, let's go back to the hotel stuff. Last thing I want to do is hear my brother. The female on the road. Hell no. No, I can still hear it. And can't.
That's a hard no.
And it's not cool. So, yeah, but it was really fun being the only girl in the band, and just, you know, I was treated so well by HK Management and the record company, and just, you know, I remember before getting on the bus and the tour, I remember Howard Kaufman, who was my manager at the time. I remember he and actually Tawny Katane too. Like I have like rock star brain and I've got TV producer brain, and they work at different times. But to get in the mindset of going out on stage and commanding the stage and rocking the house, like there's steps, there's rituals, there's rings that have to go on, you know, they're like, and it's like, heaven forbid that I can't find my Vixen pendant, which by the way, after the Hot as Hell show at Fantasy Springs, I could not find. This is a brand new one. I had to get a new one from Cher, Ross, and Bam, because I feel like I went delirious or something. I have no idea where my original.
So someone's got a keepsake.
Or it's in some luggage in some pocket of like, I was just mental and I just did something weird. I've done that before when I've done a lot of gambling. I love playing roulette. And so in Vegas, I used to do a lot of roulette. And I remember one night I'd been drinking and was up like quite a bit of money. And I do these weird things with my brain. I'm like, okay, I really want to make sure I know where I'm putting this money because I don't want to lose it. So I put it in some really out of the ordinary, weird place, thinking that makes sense.
So safe.
Next day I wake up and I have no idea what I've done. And it took me 2 days to find that wad of cash. Ridiculous. I know. So I think I did the same thing. I think I was like, oh, I'm kind of delirious. I'm falling asleep. I got to make sure that I put this in a safe place. I have no idea where it is right now, but I'm sure it's going to show up at some point. But the reason I'm wearing it, honestly, I haven't taken it off since they sent it to me because I'm so terrified of losing.
You don't lose the backup.
Yeah, and exactly. And this has to be on stage with me when I go out on stage, or we're not going to have a good show.
I'm curious because do you think you worked a normal job, what I consider, accounting and a regular old job, and then you got to pursue your dream, and whereas like Morgan Wallen, Taylor Swift, when you've been famous since you were a teenager, right, and 10, 15 years later, I'm curious, because I'm the same way, right? It's like, I'm a normal guy. Now I've got this. And then people are like, oh, you're so lucky. And I'm like, oh, I'm very fortunate, but it's also 5 years of work and this and that.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but I'm grateful that I got the opportunity when I got it. Because when I was in my 20s, I wasn't as mature.
Sure.
So, you know, the fact that I didn't have that success until I was early to mid 30s,
Yeah.
you know, it allowed me to be able to appreciate the success that I was able to, you know, achieve with help from friends, you know, and the fact that I still get to do it. I sit back sometimes and I think about it, I say, man, I'm still able to do this. This is really cool. And I appreciate it because when I look out, you know, people have all kinds of other options when it comes to your disposable income or your time watching videos or listening to music. There's so many options. And if somebody takes the time out of their day to listen to a 3-minute and 17-second song that you had the opportunity to write and perform, that's a big deal. To me, it is, because, you know, you could have been doing something else with that 3 minutes and 17 seconds.
Yeah.
You could have been, you know, you could have been clipping coupons to go grocery shopping, or you could have been, you know, listening to the news, or you could have been talking on the phone with friends.
Yeah.
Anything. And the fact that you took time out of your schedule to listen to 3 minutes and 17 seconds of something that I helped create, that's a big deal to me.
Dude, I literally, most of my shows are 45 minutes long.
Just don't give up. It's been hell. Of course, I'm not telling them that, but I'm telling the parents, I'm like, just don't give up. Put her in voice lessons, put her in dance, like get her involved to see how much she really loves it. And then if you want to, you know, join the good fight, because it's not for the weak or the faint.
Since you brought that up, what are the difficulties in becoming a pop singer at this time?
Oh man, there's a lot. I'd say first and foremost, the most important thing is creating the music. That took me years to actually have a properly produced, mixed and mastered record to come out and to be heard by everyone that could compete.
Yeah.
Everything else that's out there was the hardest thing for me. I took down several songs that I had up, and now I'm actually having some of them like remixed and mastered, just because like I have better producers in my life and better technology, and things have improved like rapidly, especially since like 2015, 2016. So I've done a lot of that, doing a lot of rework just for it to have a better quality. I'm leaving all the vocals, I'm leaving everything the way it is, because that was a moment in time. And I want to keep that, right? That energy, the voice, everything is all in there. And so to replace that or to redo it, there's no need for me to redo it, but just to have a little bit of a better sound quality. So when it comes out the speaker, you can feel that better. And that's expensive. So that's the first hurdle, is like to create and to get it popping. And to spend thousands of dollars to make back pennies is a really fucked up business model. And unfortunately, that is what all artists are dealing with right now, with streaming services and with monetization through social media.
Yeah, so, well, Fort Monroe, first of all, historically was the first fort where, unfortunately, slaves landed and became the very first place for slaves to have a sanctuary in America.
Oh.
So it has a very long, brutal history, but also a very validating history that was full circle. So Fort Monroe has come on as a partner, has donated locations, including like the general's house that's there for a location for one of the films, and is on committees across the board. And he's just a dear friend. So he's stepping in. So we know it's going to look creepy. We know the location is creepy, but ultimately there's still a lot of abandoned buildings that are there. And we're in talks with Fort Monroe and the people in power there, along with the Virginia Film Commission. And ideally, this is, you know, we're not only going to create these film festivals and the education platform, but we also want to create a film community and a pre-production, post-production studio space that all of these kids can actually go and get their hands dirty, basically, you know, editing, learning the process all the way through from top to bottom.
I think it's important to experience all parts.
Well, I was going to ask, when you travel around Australia, do you try to book an extra time to see whether it's a museum or some kind of, you know, even if you're there for work, do you try and book in time for that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to still have that work-life balance. And if I'm traveling somewhere, I might as well do a little bit of adventuring myself, as well as catching up with people that say, like, I've built up quite a community on social media, and sometimes you forget that you haven't actually met the person just because you like talk back and forth so much, and yeah, so it's nice to be able to also catch up with those people and build up those connections and things like that as well.
You know,
That's the whole reason why I did it.
that movie's going to be out there for the next, you hope, 60, 70, 80, 100 years. Right? I mean, because people are still watching Gone with the Wind and some of the.
Correct. Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
You've done something that potentially could affect somebody in 50 years. They're not even born yet, and they're going to watch your movie going, holy smokes, I need to do something.
All right. Is this going to be like an Oprah Winfrey moment where I'm like sitting on the couch? I'm going to start crying right now? Because come on, Peter. It's chills all over my body right now, man.
But I mean, that's what I think of. I mean, I started dude, if I were to, God forbid, something that happens to me tomorrow, my boss would be like, ugh, that sucks. Hey, anyways, let's go, you know, it's just
moving on.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife used to work at New York, the casino in Vegas. And they used to joke, oh, you know, she's sick, she's not coming back, or she got cancer, you know. Oh, hey, when's her shift coming up? You know? And so I do the podcast to share your story. And then I'm also leaving something behind.
100%.
That's greater than myself. And your movie's the same way.
Man, I thank you for saying that, because I don't think I give myself enough credit on that deep realization. I mean, that is why I did it. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I have other projects that I want to do that have the same thing. It gives voice to the voiceless. And I just want to do my part. God gave me this gift and this drive, and I just want to do it for the right reason and make a living at it and support my family. That's it. And I don't think I give myself enough credit, like my self-help kind of, you know, process that I probably should.
And I think when I stopped waiting and hoping that someone would see something in me and started to do that for myself, you know, what is the quote? I saw an angel in the marble and I cut until I set it free. Kind of, I love that sentiment. I think that's why I love Mae West and all the old Hollywood actresses. They really had to, I mean, to some extent, not all of them, but to really find something within themselves and cultivate it and make something beautiful out of it. And for me, it was definitely that way, because I remember getting in the car after that incident. I had other incidences after, and it was eventually a final straw, but there was this moment where I thought, well, if no one's ever going to see more in me than, you know, a roll in the hay, let's say, I know that I have more. I know that. And I'm scared of it because I don't think it's up to my taste level, and I don't think I'm necessarily educated. I'm really insecure about how little I know about cameras and about sets and about everything, but I know that I care about it. I know that I'm creative, and I know that I want to learn. So it was that final straw kind of eventually happening, which took me, I kind of went dark for 6 months. I like shut down my life and thought, what do I want to make? If it's really just me and there's no one coming to help me, and there's no one who's going to have my best interest at heart, no one's going to see something in me and help me cultivate it. If it's just me, what do I want that to look like? And how do I do that? And that's kind of really led me to where I am. So it's been a negative experience, but in another way, it's kind of forced me to be more self-reliant, and I was already pretty self-reliant to begin with. So yeah, it's been it's scary because I have a lot of young girls.
It's a time of opportunity. Like, you know, anyone who's in the film space right now is probably going to be, you know, you've just had the writer's strike and the actor's strike. Everyone's going to be at different spaces, but I think the best way to look at it is it's a time of opportunity, because the one good thing about the streaming platforms is it's meant that there's a wide open space if you want to make your own content and have it actually distributed to, you know, millions of people through Paramount Plus, Netflix, which wasn't there before. The cost of films as well to make films is just dropping, you know, with technology. I mean, it's getting to the point where you can shoot a really good film for under 100,000 and get it onto a streaming platform, which will get in front of millions of eyeballs, which wasn't there before. Like before, if you wanted to make a movie 10 years ago, probably $1 million is the minimum budget. You'd have to go through a studio and
second unit, getting red cameras, grip.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, an exciting time is probably the best way to put it if you're prepared to do the work.
And I know you kind of started off in a pop genre.
Yes.
And then you found your voice being in country. So it's a good mix. I mean, it worked for Taylor Swift, so it might just work for you.
I think it's really cool, especially where country music is nowadays. I feel like there's almost no limitations anymore. And I love that because for somebody like myself, I love listening to all different types of music. Like some of my favorite music is some like 70s rock. I blast that in the car everywhere I'm driving and everyone's like, that's not what I was expecting. But that or even like some screamo every once in a while, which is really hard to believe, but I do enjoy it. Sometimes I have to be in the mood. Most times I have to be angry and then I'm like, yeah. And the person next to me driving down the freeway is like, is she okay? But no, I think it's really cool because there's so many different influences going into country music nowadays. That there's something for everyone.
Do you find you're crafting your music to be more pop, or is it just kind of comes out of you and it's country, but it's?
I think I will say it's all kind of situation dependent, depending on the day, or it's like maybe I listen to a song and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that song really speaks to me and I kind of want to model.
How much of the traveling has it affected your ability to work out?
I mean, it hasn't affected my ability to work out because I prioritize it. I mean, it's just that simple, right? But it does make the dietary portion of things rather challenging. And it's not even so much that I'm eating horrible, although sometimes I certainly am, right? I can't just go to the fridge and have my pre-made meals and things like that. But it's also the jet lag, and it definitely makes it harder. But luckily I've been doing it since I was 13 years old. So even if you have a bad week, I know it doesn't mean you have a bad month.
Right.
It just means the next couple days back, it's like, oh my God, but you're used to that. But I could see now how difficult it would be for people to either get started or once they fall off, have that feeling.
How much does that hurt you?
Which part?
Having the Hispanic background, do you think it's hurt you at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't look your stereotypical Latina, which, people think of Latina, they think J-Lo or, someone not as pale as me or with freckles. I have blue eyes and I'm blonde. So I'm not your stereotypical Latina. And when I moved to LA, and I have an accent, right? But I move like a Latina. I speak with my hands. I like I said, I have the accent. So when I moved here, there was a big push from my agents and manager to get rid of the accent or be able to switch it on and off. So I took accent reduction classes, and that was a waste of money and time. So, or dye your hair darker like Sofia Vergara. And I'm like, yeah, but I still have blue eyes and I'm pale. Like,
we'll get you contact lenses.
Right. And it was just like, I just decided to be myself and own who I am. And all Latinos, Latinos, we come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. And I think that's the beauty of who we are. I think nowadays it's we're all mixed and we all look different, whether you're Latino or not. So things have changed for the better.
That's why I was so excited to talk to you, because I think you've bridged that gap. You didn't necessarily fit in that Hispanic stereotype.
Right.
You didn't quite fit into the blonde hair, blue eye stereotype of Hollywood.
Right. I mean, if I would audition for parts that were more, Anglo, they'd be like, you have an accent. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? What accent?
What accent?
What are you talking about? Yeah. So it's like, I never fit in. I was like, I'll just create my own opportunities. And that's eventually how I ended up having my own, creating and producing my own TV show, which is the one that I got the Emmy for.
I got a choice here. Once in a while, I would actually choose a very low-paying acting gig over a high-paying comedy gig. Once in a while, you need the chops. You need credits and stuff like that, and the work, and work begets work. You work with one director, they have you for another thing.
Right.
There's a lot of that goes on. So I just went in for a student project. I thought they were good. I didn't know that going in. I thought, oh my God, it's the lead. It's a chemistry test. That's as far as you can get. I get there. It's at USC.
Well, that's a good film school, though. That's pretty.
Then they tell me as I'm auditioning, we really like you. But did you know this is no pay? Really?
No, I didn't.
The whole way down, I was thinking about all the people would be jealous of me when I'm on the starring role in this new series.
Yeah.
But it's
not always what it is.
No, it's not always what it is. It never is what it is, actually. I'd say it never is what it is.
You've literally traveled around the world for comedy, and I'm sure you've had the same moments where you show up to a comedy club and wherever, and you're like, oh, this is not what I was expecting.
No, not when I'm playing somebody's converted garage.
Yeah.
He blackened the windows.
Oh, at least he did that.
Huh?
At least they did that for you.
Yeah, I wasn't looking outside, but oh yeah, I've played all sorts of places where they just convert whatever's trending at the time. I remember when, the horse, mechanical bull.
Yeah.
They just covered that up, and now you have a comedy show, because that trend's over. So,
and they don't know what to do with it. No one wants one.
Yeah, I just bought this bull. What are we going to do with it? So I'm in the bull ring with this thing covered up. But I've done so many gigs and all over the world, the country. I've been very fortunate in that way. I've been to all 50 states.
See, that's my goal.
And what do you have missing?
I got the Northeast. I haven't been in the Northeast.
What?
I can go there.
What?
I've been to New York. I've been to Maryland.
Oh, well, you have been to Northeast. Those are Northeast.
Well, I'm saying Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Delaware, Connecticut. How did y'all end up on a bus?
So we played in North Carolina on the coast for a couple years, and we lived on a little horse farm, not a big ranch or anything, just a small little horse farm, and just maybe a block or so down the road, our bus was sitting behind a house, and it was at a workshop behind this guy's house, and it was just a gray primer, and it looked like it hadn't been touched in a while. And every time I would pass it, I would look, and I showed her one day, I was like, hey, check this, old bus out. And we had no idea anything about it really. And
right. And he had been wanting to renovate a bus, and we've been thinking about traveling, but and then all of a sudden this bus kind of appeared around the block from us.
So we were out one day, and there was someone mowing grass out front, and I like turned in, and Leah's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm gonna ask this guy about the bus, and roll the window down. He came up, and we introduced ourselves, and he goes, oh yeah, he said, that's my dad's bus, and he wants to sell it. And he's like, actually, he's back in the workshop now if you want to meet him. So we go back, and he takes us in, and this giant of a man,
it's like 6'2".
Yeah, he's 6'3", 6'2", at 79 years old.
Yeah.
Right. I can't imagine what he was like when he was 25. Comes walking out and introduces himself. He's very stoic, and but it didn't take him very long. Like, he was definitely, he loved Leah to death, of course. And so his name's Mr. Lewis, and but he, at the end of the conversation, he's like, y'all call me Pops. He's like, everybody calls me Pops.
Yeah, he was so sweet.
And long story short, we ended up buying the bus from him for $1,000.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. To make a long story short, at 12, I moved to the United States, again, with the support of my parents, went to a ballet boarding school, following my sister's footsteps. And a year into it, I was gaining weight from depression. I was obviously emotionally eating. because the director, for personal reasons, had a problem with tall girls. So I wasn't the only one that she called on a weekly basis to her office. But, you know, with me, the chat was, you're not good enough, you're too tall, nobody's going to hire you as a dancer, nobody wants to see a giant on stage. In fact, she even told me, like, go back to Brazil and sweep the street, like I'm from, you know. So it was just insulting, but discouraging. That was the worst part. It was discouraging, right? And then my response to that was to go, when I went back home, because we would go once a year, when I went back to Brazil, I asked my mom, could you get me a nutritionist? And she's like, yeah, what's the matter? I said, no, I just want to learn how to eat better, right? She's like, of course. I'm like, I need to have more energy. I was lying, of course, but whatever plan they gave me, which was like 1,500 calories, I cut by half. So I was eating 750 calories a day. And I started cutting even more, to the point that I was like, it was like a banana, some type of protein, and then that's it, right? And then I became anorexia nervosa. Like, I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. So I was down to 89 pounds, and I was already 5'8", maybe 5'8.5", and blacking out in class, holding on to the ballet bar, couldn't jump anymore, turned maybe nauseous. And yeah, it was obviously life-threatening, and got taken to the children's hospital, and the doctor told me, tell your mom that you're dying. You know, if you keep going at this pace, you're losing weight really fast. And, you know, at some point your heart is going to give up on you, right? You're not giving your brain enough nutrients, I'm sure. And so anyway, the whole blood panel just looked like a disaster, not to mention the numbers on the scale, which kept going down. So
and as I became a much larger creative voice as an influencer, then it became, you know, very interesting with how I traveled. And I do know that the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss played a large role in how I was like essentially putting this structure together of what it looks like. So I had to put together a nice little nifty game plan of, okay, well, what does remote work look like for me as somebody that loves to travel? So it became a thing where I was doing two things at once. Like, let's say if I were to go to Mexico City, I'm taking all these like gorgeous photos and videos, and essentially that's a part of like my brand identity.
Right.
And then at the same time, I'm obviously having like work hours where I'm doing marketing consulting. So having a nice balance of that was really interesting, of like knowing when and how to do that.
Something's up. Yeah.
Something's definitely happened. Like, oh, okay, they're just on Roblox.
Yeah.
Cool.
But you know, because if you travel, like if you're in Bentonville,
right,
you could FaceTime your daughter and say goodnight to her. How was school? You know, get your test up. But you're having that face-to-face contact, which I mean, I did that with my kids when they're in college. You know, so I didn't have to be with them, but I could still. It's always different face. You know, even like the Zoom calls are better than just a phone call, in my opinion.
Absolutely, totally agree with you.
So, but using technology for a benefit.
Absolutely. And I feel like, you know, that's like a reward. Like that is, like I said, you know, we do have to embrace technology. But we have to, there's no but. We have to figure out new strategies on how we're able to not let all of these distractions influence our decision making, because so much of it is tied to egocentric and apathetic actions versus having empathy and even evolving all of these things. Like, how are we evolving technology? Like, how are we?
It's gonna be crazy.
You know what I mean? And what are the next steps? You know, cancer's still a thing. You know, disease is still a thing. You know, we're still dealing with all sorts of different crises all around the world, and we put a lot of emphasis on like a mobile device and how convenient our lifestyles are. When in reality,
what if we put that focus on life-changing things?
Exactly. And
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but you know, we're not encouraged to do that. That's the funny part.
Yeah. Doesn't make money.
On a very deep level, you're rewarded by having the mobile device.
Let's bring up the Got Matcha.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of routines and staying healthy on the road.
Yeah.
It's, you know, easy to get in the routine of, oh, I'll have a couple drinks to fall asleep
or, you know,
Yep.
and then drink a ton of coffee to wake up. So I was drinking a lot of coffee, and you know, that whole routine is not good. Nothing about that is
No.
a good thing. But drinking a ton of water is really good when you travel. So I drink so much water. In fact, as soon as we land, I always make the driver bring me to a gas station before
Get a
anything.
bottle,
I buy
yeah.
jugs. No, I buy like jugs and
Oh.
jugs into my hotel room. I mean, I'll drink at least one of those as soon as I get in. Like, I drink a lot of water, so that's been good. And matcha tea. So I'm not a tea person, never liked tea. I always
Yeah.
thought tea is for when you're sick and ew. And I was at a farmer's market in California, and I
Yeah.
ran to Rebecca from Got Matcha. And
Wow.
first of all, she's just amazing and
Yeah.
just bright and vibrant. And I liked her right away. And I was like, I'll try one of these samples, thinking I was going to hate it. But I was like, I walked away with it. And then I was like, I stopped and I was like, wait, I'm going to walk back. I can't believe I actually like this.
Yeah.
And so I got hooked on that, and it has been amazing because it just doesn't give you the jitters and anxiety that coffee just made me a little strung out, you know?
I can't wait to do this. I was so excited about doing this podcast because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, you know, in travel and entertainment, and, you know, some of the things you have to do to get to where you got to get to. And and I've been to some pretty fun places thanks to Invincible, and, you know, places I never would have gotten to. I would never go into cities, you know, if it weren't for the NFL and getting that opportunity. So it's pretty cool. I'm a lucky man.
Oh, I'm sitting there going, okay, one of the things I'd like to talk about, obviously, is traveling in the 70s for an NFL team is a lot different than how they travel today.
But I realized after I left Congress that I was jet lagged for 8 solid years, constantly. You don't really dig your way out of that one.
Well, I was going to say, you know, and going to all the different islands and then having really specific issues on each island.
Yes.
From Molokai to Lanai to Kauai, Maui. I mean, they're all unique territories.
I think it's what a lot of people don't realize, maybe if they're visiting Hawaii for the first time, or, I mean, quite honestly, even a lot of people who've grown up on the island of Oahu and not traveled much, you know, not traveled much around the state, which is not uncommon. You don't really realize how every island has its very unique culture, unique history, and really this beautiful sense of pride in their identity as a people from that island is quite distinct and different from those from another island.
Well, and then, are you know, when you go to Maui, you must have an incredible amount of points. I mean, hotel
Usually
points.
what I would do, I'm grateful to have friends who I'm able to stay with in a lot of different places, and I would do so very often if I was going and overnighting on one of the neighbor islands. But usually what I would do is, you know, take an early flight out, have a full day, and then fly back to Honolulu. When you travel a lot, you end up valuing sleeping in your own bed a lot more than if you're jumping from one hotel to the other. And so quite often I would go, if I'm flying home on a Friday, I would spend Saturday on one island, go home for the night, spend Sunday working on a different island, and then usually fly back to Washington, D.C. on a Monday.
Just another day.
Yeah, just another day. Honestly, it was the best part about that entire campaign experience, because it allowed me the opportunity to get to different parts of the country that a lot of people will never hear about in a news story, but get to engage and have real conversations, real exchanges, share meals with, and spend time with people who have a unique story to tell and unique challenges that they're struggling with, and different kinds of hopes and dreams that they want to see come about for our country. Really, when you get out and you travel, you realize across our country, you realize how big it is, how different and unique it is. And nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Those are the 3 things that I try to remain disciplined on as I'm traveling or as I'm at home, because those are the things that I can affect. It'll look very different than if I'm at, you know, my local community gym versus a hotel gym, which usually doesn't have very many good implements. But, you know, sometimes it's like, all right, all I can do is go for a walk or go for a jog today, and that's it. If I don't have weights, maybe I'll do some squats and push-ups and some pull-ups. But it's just, it's more than what you do, is the fact that you are making those good choices. You know, obviously my first deployment to Iraq changed my life, and it changed the world that I thought existed before, and seeing the world that actually existed, experiencing the cost of war. And it really changed the trajectory of my life and caused me to make different decisions that I never thought I would have made. It made it so I couldn't go back to the life that I had left behind of serving in the state legislature. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Right.
I just knew that I had experienced I'd gone through such life-changing experiences and been exposed to a harsh truth about the cost of war and who profits from our wars and who pay the price, and how too many of our politicians don't know and don't care to know and consider these facts and these harsh realities before they make the decision about whether or not our brothers and sisters in uniform, are sent into harm's way, and what the cost and consequences of that are.